Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Zach Lee, and welcome back to the Zach Lee Show, where we talk about everything that's going on in the NBA on a daily basis. As always, you guys are the real MVPs coming back each and every single day. Can't thank you enough, but now let's just take a look at everything that is going on in the NBA. Let's go! I can't lie, I'm not a fan of either of these teams. I enjoy watching both the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Toronto Raptors because I like to see great basketball being played. But on most nights, when it comes to who wins and who loses between these two teams, I don't really care. That being said though, I do feel as if this was a must-win game for the Raptors. There was a lot more pressure for the Toronto Raptors to win this game than there was for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I even found myself kind of low-key rooting for the Raptors to win, and that's only because I knew the type of backlash that awaited them if they didn't. They would get absolutely torn apart by the fans, and they did. Look, it wouldn't have mattered if the Toronto Raptors would have lost to any other team in the NBA last night. They could have went out and lost to the freaking Phoenix Suns. It wouldn't have mattered. That wouldn't have been as bad in the eyes of most fans as it was that they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it's just because every time the Raptors do lose to the Cavs, it reminds people of how their last couple of postseasons ended. And in yesterday's game, it was made even worse by the fact that the Toronto Raptors scored 79 points by halftime, were up by 15, and still lost. And after this game, both Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan weren't very happy, especially Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was heated as he went on to say this was a trash game by the Toronto Raptors and a disgraceful display of defense.
Kyle, what do you take from this tonight? Win or lose, it was that close. You guys were right there. What do your overall take tonight?
It was a trash game by us. They shot 60% from the field. It was a disgraceful display of defense by us, and we gotta be better than that.
And DeMar DeRozan kind of echoed that. He said he thought they played good enough to win, but at the same time, they played like trash.
We played well enough to win, but we still at the same time felt like we played terrible, because we couldn't get no stops. We didn't make nothing really tough on them, and they got hot, they got it rolling, and with all that, we still lost by 3.
I mean, pretty much. They both said what all of us were seeing. Offensively, Toronto was fine. They probably would have beaten a majority of other teams in the NBA off their offense alone last night. But there wasn't a single ounce of defensive intensity from them yesterday, especially in the second half. That being said, I think people might be making this into a bigger deal than it should be. Like I said, if it were any other team in the NBA that they lost to last night, it would have been just another loss, no matter if it was Golden State, Houston, Boston, or even Phoenix. But since it was against the Cavs, it had all this extra hidden meaning to it. In the end though, it is still just one regular season game. It doesn't mean anything right now, nor will it mean anything when these two teams meet in the playoffs down the line. As for the Cleveland Cavaliers though, this was the LeBron James dream. This is the type of game that he thrives in. When he has it going and his shooters on the outside have it going too, like when both those things happen when they co-align, you're not going to win. Even though this was a completely different team the Cavs had in the finals last season, this game reminded me of how the Cavs played in game 4 of the finals against the Golden State Warriors, where they just couldn't miss. Shot 60% from the floor, 62% from deep. LeBron with 35 points, 17 assists, and no turnovers. Bro, when they have it going like they did last night against the Toronto Raptors, they're not going to lose, period. And after the game, LeBron James sort of downplayed this whole thing. But people thought that this game could have been him trying to prove a point to the Raptors that, look, this is what awaits you when the playoffs start. Just in case you forgot, here's a reminder. LeBron James said though that he shouldn't have to remind anyone of what he or his teams are capable of doing.
Do you want to remind them that they still have to get through the Cavaliers at some point?
No. It's a good win for us just because how depleted we are with our roster and everything that's been going on. It's a good win for us versus a very good opponent. But I don't need to remind anybody what my teams are capable of doing. So that wasn't a factor.
He almost said it. He almost said, this is what I am capable of, but he caught himself and said, my teams are capable of. But LeBron, it's okay. We all know that you are the Cleveland Cavaliers. You can just come out and say it. You are the team. Moving on though, some other hot news that came out yesterday surrounded the Milwaukee Bucks and Jabari Parker. As rumors came out saying the Milwaukee Bucks were extremely close to trading Parker at the trade deadline, and that there is a slim to none chance that Parker returns to the Bucks next year. Hold up though, is it crazy that over this summer, both the number 1 and the number 2 pick from the 2014 NBA draft could be traded. Andrew Wiggins, of course, was the number 1 pick. The Wolves could trade him, and now Jabari Parker, the number 2 pick, the Bucks could trade him. As for the whole Milwaukee Bucks trading Jabari Parker thing, though, I could easily see this happening. And that's because Jabari Parker is set to be a restricted free agent this summer. And I think the last thing the Bucks would want to do is have to overpay to keep him just to make sure they don't lose him for nothing. We all know that to most teams, Jabari Parker is not a max level player. That's not saying that he doesn't have max level talent, because he does. We saw it on display last year when he was a borderline all-star before he tore his ACL again. And that right there is the problem. He's in his 4th year in the NBA and has played less than half the number of games that he should have been as a normal 4th year player has. Paying top dollar for a guy who has serious injury concerns is a very risky thing. Like I said though, most teams know this, and most teams won't extend Jabari Parker a max or near max deal until he proves that he can stay healthy. However, you already know that there are going to be a couple of teams who just say, screw it, throw some money at Jabari Parker and hopefully he comes here. Look at the Brooklyn Nets. This is something they've been trying to do for the past couple of seasons. Snag a young player who's a restricted free agent, or maybe has fallen out of favor for some reason with his old team. Go after him, throw him some money, make them an offer, and hopefully you can get him because you ain't getting nothing else. The Nets were obsessed with Allen Crabbe a couple of years ago, made him a 4-year contract offer worth $75 million. And the Blazers, who didn't want to just let Allen Crabbe walk for nothing, were forced to match that offer and give Allen Crabbe a 4-year $75 million deal. And then the summer after that, last summer, they tried to do a similar thing with Otto Porter Jr. when they gave him a max contract offer. And the Wizards, who didn't want to let him go for nothing, were forced to match that offer. Forced to give Otto Porter Jr. a max deal because the Brooklyn Nets were going to give Otto Porter Jr. a max deal. So yes, teams like Brooklyn or Atlanta even, because of the position they are in and how hard it is for them to get young talent or players to come there in general, they will be willing to take a gamble on Parker and throw him a max contract offer. Because for real, what do they got to lose? Which will put the Bucks in an extremely awkward situation where they're either forced to overpay to keep Jabari Parker or just have to let him go for nothing. So I can see them trying to trade Jabari Parker before that situation goes down, before that happens. That's just what makes sense. But we also got reports last night saying that this isn't necessarily true. And these reports came from the Milwaukee Bucks general manager himself, as he had this to say on the situation. Yesterday, I saw a couple of things came out about our team. Rumors are a part of this business, and I think people are on the outside that desperately want a voice and some attention and want to kind of make a name for themselves and have an opinion on stuff and make comments. But when guys are continuously wrong and kind of make egregious statements that are negative and affect our players or our coach, I feel I have a responsibility to stick up for these guys and stick up for the organization. That was just his extremely fancy way of saying the guy who made these comments is irrelevant. His opinion doesn't matter. He's a clout chaser. He wants to be somebody so badly that he's willing to make up these false claims to try and gain attention, acting like he knows something when he knows nothing at all. The dude said the man has been wrong time and time again. He says you've never been right in your life. And on top of that, the son of one of the co-owners of the Milwaukee Bucks came out and said that this is fake news. So it could be, but honestly at this point, I still do believe the Milwaukee Bucks are shopping Jabari Parker around, or at least will shop Jabari Parker around. Even if it's just something similar to the Orlando Magic were doing with Aaron Gordon at the trade deadline, talking to other teams trying to see what his value on the market is before he becomes a restricted free agent. Because right now there's only 2 scenarios for the Milwaukee Bucks. Actually 3. They trade Jabari Parker, or they let him go into restricted free agency, where they either have to overpay to keep him or let him walk. That actually wraps up all the news from yesterday though. Now let's take a quick look at the games from last night. For those of you that didn't get to experience Dwight Howard back in his prime, in his Orlando days, all the way back in like 2009, well, this is pretty much what we saw on a nightly basis back then. Just dominance in its purest form. And that is why, even though he hasn't been the same ever since he left Orlando, the man is still going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, you can't deny that he was one of the most dominant bigs the NBA has ever seen back when he was dominant. Howard though just posted the first 30-point, 30-rebound game since Kevin Love did it 8 years ago. 32 points and 30 rebounds for D12, and that is just insane as the Hornets get the 111-105 win over the Nets. I'm telling y'all though, this is the Steve Clifford effect. He was with Dwight Howard in Orlando as an assistant coach, and now he is back as the head coach. He should have been coaching him his entire career. Bad news to the Bucks, as Giannis had to leave this game early with a tweaked ankle. And we talk about Steph Curry and his ankle problems from this year, but Giannis has hurt his ankle a few times times too. It's never been anything serious, but this is at least the third or fourth time that something like this has happened. No word on if he will miss any time yet, but he did walk himself out of the court relatively easily, so I think he should be fine. And without the Greek Freak, the Bucks fell to the Clippers 127-120. DeAndre Jordan with a solid 25 points and 22 rebounds would have been an extremely impressive game on any other night that didn't showcase Howard and his 30-30 game. We are on a warpath to get home court advantage. That's what Brett Brown said. We are moving up. Our goal is home court advantage. That is what Joel Embiid said. That's what we are playing for, and we have to stick with it. And that is what Ben Simmons said. If the playoffs were to start right now, the Sixers would have home court advantage, as after their 119-105 win over the Grizzlies, Philly has a record of 40-30, tied for 4th in the East with the Pacers, and only 1.5 games behind the Cavs, so the 3rd seed actually. And the home court advantage would mean a lot for this young team because it would give them a much better chance of making it out the first round. Because if you know anything about sports in Philadelphia, you know just how crazy the fans can be, and look, I mean that in a good way. Like, I feel bad for any team that has to play in the Wells Fargo Center 4 times in the best of 7 series because it's about to be loud and it's gonna get crazy. The Sixers know that, and that is why the advantage is so important to them. They want that advantage, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get it either. Like I said, the Sixers are tied with the Pacers in the East right now because the Pacers lost to the Pelicans last night, 96-92. Anthony Davis with another one of his usual games, 28 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 blocks for the best big man in the NBA. Another team that the Sixers had to thank for their current standings in the Eastern Conference is the San Antonio Spurs, because the Spurs beat the Wizards yesterday, 98-90. Had Washington won this game, and they would have been the 4th seed. The race for 4th, 5th, and 6th in the East, though, is going to be intense down the stretch here. Got a feeling that tiebreakers are going to be huge. LaMarcus Aldridge, though, continues to play well for San Antonio with 27 points and 9 rebounds, as the Spurs are still trying to move back up in the standings out west. If Chicago wasn't trying to lose, then this would have been an embarrassing loss. But when you're tanking, there is no such thing as an embarrassing loss, so it's all good, I guess. Denver wasn't playing around in this game, though. They held nothing back. 135-102. They destroyed the Bulls. Paul Millsap, the high man for the Mile High City, with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. And the Heat beat the Knicks. There isn't even much to say about this one. It was just another win for Miami and another loss for the Knicks. Goran Dragic and Kelly Olynyk both scored 22 for South Beach. And that wraps up all the action from yesterday. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to smack that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more daily NBA news. Remember to vote for the player of the day, but also remember that only players whose team won are eligible to win player of the day. And yesterday, that player was James Harden, and his 42 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Thank you once again for watching. I'll see all of you right back here tomorrow, but until then, I am out of here. Peace!